better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
Kamala Harris on the daily D.C. rundown, talking about the Prime Minister and the one-year anniversary of the attacks on Israel. Her visit to the border and her speech outlining her economic vision captured the attention of Americans in September. But now the breakthrough, and as a polling project says, there are some trends in the data hint at warning signs for the vice president's campaign. And they say the share of Americans hearing anything at all about Kamala Harris has dropped each week since the presidential debate with Donald Trump. Meanwhile, former president, according to CNN, we preface it by saying that here, Larry, has delivered a, quote, barrage of lies and distortions, close quotes, about the federal response to Hurricane Helene. And we've heard anecdotally from some of the people, our first responders who were down on the scene, that Donald Trump's claims about FEMA dropping the ball and dragging their feet is dead on the money.
It is fascinating to watch. Just talking about the hurricane real quick, the displacement of that legacy media. And it's clear they would use language like that all the time. Barrage of lies and mistruths.
Deceptions.
And then you start to see, well, what's this video I'm watching of this person who is literally saying it? Is that a real person? It's not AI generated. It looks legit. And we start to see that the truth gets out, that the legacy media has never really wanted us to see.
What did Elon say about his relief efforts?
Exactly. He was saying, I just sincerely got a text, and we cannot land the helicopter. He had to text at Pete Buttigieg, your Department of Transportation secretary and mine, to try to get it worked out. And that was just over Saturday. But no, it's a barrage. It's not just lies. It's a barrage of lies. But you know what? Switching back to Kamala, I just have to giggle at myself because, and she may be right, but she expects us to have such a short memory. Let's go back to 2020, debates between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. How often did Joe Biden say, Bibi, I know Bibi. Me and Bibi are best friends. He was touting his close relationship with Netanyahu. And now,
not so much.
Not so much. And don't forget, that's why we have Tim Walz, because
We're off. I'm John Marsh, producer Hannah, Brian Hauswirth along, and our buddy Larry Behrens back in with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Well, good morning, and I thought we'd play a fun little game this morning.
Uh-oh.
And everyone's invited to participate. And I'm going to warn you, I know it's 6:30 or so in the morning, so it's not too hard, but it's going to be Guess the Media Bias. Guess the Media Bias is the name of the game.
That shouldn't be too difficult.
Here's how it's going to work for the game I just made up about 15 seconds ago in my head. I will read you headlines, and you will guess how the media is biased. These are headlines about Kamala Harris within the last 24 hours. Not quite breaking, but within the last 24 hours.
Okay.
This is from The Hill, a Washington media outlet. Harris to sit down with The View, Colbert, and Howard Stern in Media Blitz. Okay. Here is the New York Times. Harris begins Media Blitz as Trump holds rally. Here's NBC News. Harris and Waltz embark on Media Blitz amid Republican criticism. The Guardian. Kamala Harris seeks to gain election edge over Donald Trump with Media Blitz. And finally, Bloomberg. Harris Waltz kick off week-long Media Blitz. What do you notice in the similar pattern of those headlines?
Somebody's working straight from the Harris Walls campaign press release is what it sounds like, right out of the first line of the press release.
If you picked up about 4 different newspapers and they all have the same headlines for the same candidate, we have to start asking ourselves. I'm just kidding. We don't have to start. We already know it is. It would be. So what is one of the biggest criticisms of Kamala Harris since she, ascended to the Democratic nomination through a coup? It was that she has hidden from the media. One of them. The other one is that, she's the border czar and won't admit it anymore. But she ascended to this nomination without a single vote in the primary. And she won't do any serious sit-down interviews. And here we are, 4 weeks out from election. She's been the nominee for 6 weeks, ballpark now. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's Media Blitz. And look at these difficult outlets she's going to go see. She's going to sit down, the hard-hitting interview with The View. Woo! I don't know. There's going to be some tough questions. And then she's going to stay up late. Actually, it's not staying up late. They tape it early. But she's going to, be broadcast late with Stephen Colbert. More hard-hitting questions coming her way. And then, to cap it all off, she's going to talk with Howard Stern. And so, it is just we'll call it, for our hockey fans, the hat trick gauntlet of media interviews that Kamala Harris is going to go through. So, if you were running for office and you only you first of all just ignored the press for 6 weeks, and then your wink Media Blitz was with only friendly outlets, and then the media will call it a Media Blitz. That is, I don't articulate it well, but I'm trying to put my mind around what they have demanded we believe in this election. They've demanded we believe that she's a legitimate candidate, that she's the one. I mean, again, go back to 2019. Kamala Harris was running for president.
Briefly.
She didn't even make it to the first primary of her own party. And now that is the same party telling us she's fit for the big job. Out of nowhere. That is what we're expected to believe. And now...
Well, even the rumblings from down low, we heard them this morning. The rumblings of Barack Obama didn't even support her back then. And you wonder about now. I mean, he is all about it and backslapping and hugging and all that stuff. But even Barack was no Kamala supporter.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you read between the lines, something that you probably won't see, and you can Google it, Michelle Obama will not campaign for Kamala Harris. There's a reason why. I'm just saying. And this is, and we have to remember, it was a year ago they were running stories how she was the most unpopular vice president in the history of ever. Mm-hmm. Her staff had like a 90+% turnover. This is not a successful leader by any metric or measure. But no, now we are supposed to coalesce. And when I see this, and I know you all do as well, when you see the loving treatment she now gets of going through and just a day of shaking hands with only friendly media outlets. I mean, these are outlets who are not just in the tank with her, they're essentially extensions of her campaign. They are daily advertisement commercials for the Kamala Harris campaign. Regardless if she's there or not. And so when she walks through that gauntlet, he said very, sarcastically, of those three outlets, and the media then says, oh, look, now she's doing it's a media blitz. Now she's doing the interviews. Now she's taking blitz. She's doing the tough questions
from Howard Stern.
The question that should pop up in our head is, we understand the media's bias there. We understand the national legacy media is all in the tank. And we have to ask ourselves why. Why do they make it so blatant that they will literally sing from the same song sheet trying to get this woman elected 4 weeks out from the election? And when they all go in and say, and this is how it works, they'll hear from the communications or a director from the campaign. It's like, hey guys, we're going to call it a media blitz. And you guys need to call it too. And my favorite headline from it is, amid Republican criticism, the old Republicans pounce line, right? It's not that she has ignored the press. It's not that she only goes to friendly outlets and can only handle friendly interviews. It's that the Republicans are criticizing her from it. And that's from your friends and mine at NBC News. Harris and Walz embark on media blitz amid Republican criticism that they're avoiding the press. It's not criticism. It's a fact. She is absolutely avoiding the press. And it's laughable if only it were the media bias, because I think that we're past the media being able to pull the wool over our eyes with these things. We see what they're doing. It's in broad daylight, and they can't hide it. Kind of like, when they say Donald Trump and the barrage of lies of the hurricane. It's like, no, we see the victims, and we see what they're going through. So we know there's some truth to what Donald Trump is saying. But think about this. If Kamala Harris cannot sit down with a Fox News, with a Newsmax, with an adversarial interview, how is she going to sit down against Putin? How is she going to sit down with President Xi? There are absolute real consequences to it. And her method so far is just to say, no, I'm just going to avoid that. I'm just not going to do it.
If you believe the CNN news story that we reported on Daily DC Rundown, that this breakthrough, the polling project, said that the share of Americans hearing anything about Kamala has dropped each week since the debate. And they also said the tones Americans use in describing what they've heard about her is growing more negative, reaching the lowest point of her campaign in the latest results. And this is a CNN news story.
Yeah, it is. It is. And let me, gather on, kids. Let me tell you about Political Polling 101.
Put your ear up to the speaker.
Yeah. The polls up to this point were meant to drive a story, not necessarily meant to reflect the truth. That's why you see a whole lot of polling people, Nate Silver, Real Clear, they'll do the polling average, right? They'll take all the polls that are being done and boil it down to the average to try to see trends in that. Because if you're a candidate and you're, say, 10 points down, but you don't know you're 10 points down, polling company still wants to get your money. So they're going to poll in such a way that it doesn't look like you're 10 points down and then put that poll out there. But when it comes to a month before Election Day, they don't want their poll, someone to go back in December, January and say, well, your poll said he was 10 points down and he won. No, they're going to start coming out with their truthful polls and start to say, oh, yeah, my one before, my closest before Election Day, that's the only one that counts. Ignore the 50 that they paid me for before that. It's, things change.
And then the margin of error as we get a little closer to Election Day that used to be a 0.5% goes to a 2.5% plus or minus.
And who could forget 2016? What did the polls say? And so the polls are designed to drive stories. And so it doesn't, let me just give you advice. If it says your candidate is up by 1 million points, go vote. If it says your candidate is down by 1 million points, still go vote. Don't let it decide what you're going to do. Because, and I remember, and I don't know if they do it so much anymore. I'm starting to see news outlets. They still have that rule where you can't, even though some counties are counting ballots, they can't report any results until the polls absolutely close. And the idea was that if somebody knows that the race is already decided, then they may not go vote. And so you can't report any results then. And that's what California, who screams about a lot of things, California for years have screamed about, oh my gosh, the election's decided before it even gets to us, and should we even go vote? And so just go vote regardless. Don't, when you see the poll, it's designed to do one of two things. One, get a story, and two, make you feel one way or another about the election.
And make guys like, Dick Morris and Mark Penn rich.
Well, it is. I mean, they are pretty expensive.
We had Dick Morris on the radio a couple years ago, yep. And then he was touting, we were talking to him about, how the numbers all shook out. And I asked him the question, which he didn't appreciate. I said, oh, yeah? What happened with your predictions that Mitt Romney was going to win the election back in the early 2010s? And his response was, Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
Hurricane Sandy took all the power, the telephone lines down.
Okay.
Thanks, Dick.
And these are the experts we're supposed to be believing. And so as you endure the Kamala media blitz, I don't think anyone probably listening to us right now has to endure that, because we probably don't watch any of those shows anymore.
Doesn't sound like anybody is, if you believe that CNN story.
That's right. No one is really believing it. Have understanding that it is, we talk about October surprise. It is, I think we've already been there for about a couple weeks. It is crazy time in election season. And so everyone is going to throw everything against the wall. All the money that they've raised that they can't spend, that doesn't do them any good to spend after Election Day, because Donald Trump's not running for another office after this. I really, really hope Kamala's not running for another office after this, even though she probably is if she loses. But they can't use that money again, so it's going to be all spent out. And so, and let's just for a moment...
Talk about your media blitz.
Yeah, let's just for a moment take a moment and send our thoughts to those people who are in swing states who, have to, while they're going to watch Monday Night Football tonight, will not see an advertisement for, any type of pharmaceutical. It's all going to be, here's the Trump ad, here's the Kamala ad, here's the Trump ad response to Kamala ad, here's the Kamala ad response to the Trump ad, and we're back to the game. It's going to be that.
Oh, wait, we just missed a full series of downs.
That's right. First Down, brought to you by so-and-so. 5th Street and Walnut. Next, CSI. Can I say it on the radio? Poop Patrol.
There you go. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
It's real. It's real. This is a story from the Wall Street Journal. Why landlords and even tenants are picking up after other people's pooches. Dun, dun, dun. So, about once a month, this woman drops a small plastic bag with a foul odor outside her manager's office in a Minot, North Dakota apartment building. Then she goes about her day. She says, I am on poop patrol. What is happening is they are finding the dogs, or at least the results of the dogs, that are not picking up their messes. I should say the owners. I haven't seen a dog do it themselves yet.
Yeah, that'd
Probably
be
not.
That'd
Well,
be something.
They tend to eat it occasionally.
And then,
Oh.
it's too early. And they're sending it off, no joke, to DNA labs. There's actually a company, and it will tell you which dog is the culprit.
Like the breed or what?
No, it will tell you. It will DNA.
Right down to the DNA.
Yeah, get it to
The
the
individual.
DNA. The way it works is when a specimen is found, it's shipped to a lab in Knoxville, Tennessee to be analyzed by staff. Within 1 to 2 weeks, results can reveal which resident's pooch it came from with 99% accuracy, the company says. So,
I can only imagine how expensive that would be. As a landlord, you've really got to be sick and tired of their you-know-what to invest in this.
And people are loving it. This quote here, Devin O'Barr will attribute it. He's manager of a luxury Chicago area property that uses the name of the company, Poo Prints.
Poop prints.
Awesome.
Poo Prints.
Yep.
He says, catching a poop perpetrator is exciting. He says, I feel like Maury Povich. Delivering the bad news of a match to residents, they pay as much as $2,700 a month for rent, and it can be awkward, he says.
You are the farter.
They have 120 dogs across 320 units. He says, it turns out the offender's always the sweetest residents. It's never the people you expect it to be.
So then do you feel bad if they're sweet?
No! Well, I'm so conflicted about this. One, you should clean up, right? But on the
Yes.
other hand, who has time during the day of saying, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to be the one who picks it up and sends it to the DNA lab.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you've really got to be dedicated to this cause.
No kidding. And then you wonder about the whole angle of, like they do with convicted criminals, is the dog added to a criminal DNA database that they can refer back to for other incidents anywhere in the country?
You joke, but think about it. Let's say there is like something like that. You can, that's okay, Poop Prints, here it is. So when you have the owner, let's say Larry's dog gets busted, and then I go to apply to live in a new place, part of the background check.
There you go.
Let's check the poop prints. Let's see if he's an offender. They say, though, usually only property managers and maintenance staff are responsible for collecting the dog poop for DNA testing. Tenants are helping out, too.
Oh, hang on, guys. We've got a text at 874-9390. And I won't name the name of the apartment complex, but Susan is alleging that there is an apartment complex in Columbia that is using this system.
CSI! Poop Patrol coming to Columbia. It's already here. All right. We'll stop the poop talk and get to the election talk.
It's about the same.
Coming up. Thanks so much for sticking with us. Scott Faughn coming up on Wake Up in Missouri.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 950 KWOS. I'm John Marsh. Larry Behrens in with us. Next couple of days, Randy and Steph are off. Producer Hannah, Brian Hauswirth along, and a cast of thousands with us on the air, right, Larry?
That's right. And now probably getting those doggy pickup bags and making sure that they don't get, Maury Povich from doggy DNA. Well, we are about 4 weeks out from Election Day. And I don't know if we're 4 weeks out from election result, but 4 weeks out from Election Day. And here to walk us through everything that's going on, both Missouri and nationally, is Scott Faughn. Scott, so great to talk with you.
Always appreciate the visit on Monday morning.
So
finally fall out there just a little bit. If you were going to pick up dog poo and get it analyzed this morning, I mean, it could be too cold. I wonder if there's a temperature requirement to keep that poo at.
It's just one of those stories that's like, I wonder if people are going to be interested in this, and it keeps on giving, the dog poo story. But the election's another one, right?
Kind of like a dog and poo.
That's right. So, Scott, what is, obviously we're all watching presidential. We're probably watching some local races. What are some of the things that we should be looking for 4 weeks out that maybe a lot of the media is not looking at right now?
Oh, I think it's like anything. It behooves the media to try to make things closer than they are. It makes the news more interesting. I think that there's no real race in Missouri that's particularly interesting on the statewide level. I think locally it's going to be interesting to see in Boone County if the Democrats can hold some of the seats they took last cycle. That's something to watch. I mean, if the Democrats are holding all the seats they held 2 years ago, I think that means it's a good night for Kamala Harris. A couple state Senate seats that are in play, but really the juice in Missouri is around the ballot measures. You have, all these Republicans get elected talking about liberty and freedom, but really they want liberty and freedom for you to do anything that they want you to do. Sports betting is a big example. It's taken the public putting that on the ballot when all the liberty, freedom Republicans said, well, we want you to have liberty and freedom, just not to gamble, right? Then you have Amendment 3 that's probably the main event on the Missouri November calendar. It'll make abortion legal again, and depending on who you talk to, it'll do a bunch of dastardly awful things or a bunch of wonderful things also. So that's kind of the juice. If I had to guess, sports betting's 50-50. If I had to bet on sports betting, I'm not sure how I'd go. But on the abortion thing, I think there's some momentum behind the yes effort.
Scott, some of those down ballot amendments that are on there with retirement pay for sheriffs and all that, what's your feel on some of those? Do you think we'll see any surprises, or will those just track right along?
Well, John, we saw for years, decades, Missourians' reflexive attitude towards a ballot measure was to vote no. One thing, there's been two changes in that trend. You see more folks willing to vote yes, and you see more and more folks dropping at the end of a long ballot. Now, they don't drop as much in Kansas City and St. Louis because they have charter forms of government. But you see counties that don't have a charter form of government, like let's say Franklin County. They've got a lot of votes, and they elect all of their elected officials. So, like the Cole County ballot, you have collector, recorder, every other cycle, commissioners, sheriffs, judges. Whereas in some like St. Charles County, you don't have any of that. You might have a judge. In St. Louis County, you don't even have the judges on the ballot. Greene County, Jackson, the same way. So I think you're seeing some folks just drop off the end of a desperately long ballot, and you're seeing more people willing to reflexively vote yes. I think that's a good thing for these folks trying to pass their ballot measures. That's about the only change I think you've seen.
Again, our guest here is Missouri Times publisher Scott Faughn. He is live with us here on 93.9 The Eagle and also on News Radio 950 KWS in Jefferson City. The election is just a few weeks from now. Scott, you bring up such a good point about the ballot. The length of this ballot is 17 inches, at least in Boone County, and I'd say it's going to be close to that in a lot of counties, but it's 17.
Now, Brian, is that Hannah measuring that, or you're not letting one of the guys in the office measure that?
No, that would obviously be the Brianna Lennon, our county clerk, that said that.
Oh, I trust her.
Yeah,
she'll know how to do it right.
Yeah, exactly, and she does, and she actually had to order some special paper on that. My question is this: you mentioned people dropping off because because the ballot's going to be very long. I mean, the casino issue itself is a long thing to actually read, Amendment 5. If people, out there get tired, maybe they get tired of it and just stop voting halfway through or whatever, who does that impact?
I think the folks that are willing to read all that stuff are probably more challenging people to convince to vote yes, if you want the truth. I think the people that would vote yes probably just read the headline and check the box. I don't read all that mumbo jumbo. I don't know that I'd understand it if I did. I don't think most regular people read it all. They either have it used to be in Missouri, if you had enough money to get your message out, people would give you a fair shake. If you didn't, they'd just vote no. That is changing. You saw the Clean Missouri vote. Then they had another Clean Missouri Part 2.
Correct.
People voted for that.
Yeah, Dan Hegeman brought that, and it got voted in and then got voted out. Two straight election cycles.
And to me, that's a willingness of people to vote yes when I did not see a willingness to vote. There was a fully funded campaign for the Democrats one. The Republican one didn't have much of a campaign behind it, just some grassroots folks. But I think folks are willing to vote yes. And that, I'll be honest with you, I thought they would have a harder time getting folks to give that reflexive yes than they did. And I think you may see that again. I mean, I think sports betting's got a campaign on both sides. And normally in Missouri, if both sides are running a campaign, the no wins. Now, we'll see. I think sports betting has enough appeal, it could overcome that. You notice on Amendment 3, I am seeing more and more signs out. I tell you, I drove 70, but I also got to drive around a little bit out in kind of like the St. Louis exurbs. I went to an event in St. Charles County, but it was in the good part. It was down in the southern part where the ladies have straight teeth, not up on the 70s sprawl of vinyl siding. And I tell you, there was a lot of Amendment 3. Now, the funny part about Amendment 3 is the pro-life people, the only thing pro-life people hate more than abortion is other pro-life people. You have two different campaigns running with two different designs of signs, and it's just the most Missouri pro-life thing ever, right? They can't agree on anything, even the type of signs to put out. They can't agree on. So, but I am seeing a good grassroots movement. I heard this morning on the radio, preachers are using their Sunday morning time to say vote no on 3. We'll see, but I mean, there's a lot of money on television. You watch I watched the Chiefs game 2 weeks ago, and it was just full of ads for Amendment 3. I've been watching Mike Schultz, Padres, put another exclamation point behind the fact that Cardinals hired the wrong manager. Lots of pro Amendment 3, no negatives. So we'll see what happens. But I do think that old adage of if you put on a campaign for the no will win. That's not necessarily true anymore. And it'll be very interesting in the sports betting when you have funded campaigns on both sides of an issue that generally polls relatively positive with a good hardcore base of support. I think that'll be the new test case that we'll be judging future ballot measures, chances for success or failure by.
Well, and Scott, that's the question I have. I mean, we're seeing the ads, we see the signs. Is there dollar amounts that that you can put to this? What you said the juice is the amendment petitions on the amendments. Do we have some dollar amounts behind that? I mean, are they out probably spending the governor campaign? Are they out spending the Senate campaign?
The Senate campaign, today's Senate campaigns are funded by outside third-party groups. So you don't really know, if you want the truth, how much money is spent till the very end. And even then, it's kind of a guesswork thing. So the U.S. Senate campaign will have a lot of money spent. And that's a credit to Lucas Kuntz. I really, if you'd asked me what that race would be, I said he'd run, that Hawley would run 2-3 points below Trump. Kuntz is putting up a fight. Now, I think Hawley's still the decided favorite, but it's closer than I think some folks thought it would be. And it's credit to Kuntz's hustle. I don't think the governor's campaigns are spending anything because, the Democrats don't have a lot of money. And Mike Kehoe, I mean, let's be honest, who's going to beat Mike Kehoe? I mean, really. That campaign had an outside, Crystal Quaid's campaign had an outside shot to win if she had Eigel or Ashcroft, but nobody in this state's beating Mike Kehoe. You just look at his backstory, right? And if the race got close, you'd see the airways bombarded with Kehoe ads. And I think you'll see him run some ads, but I think, I don't think it'll affect the outcome. Mike Kehoe is extremely popular with all cross sections of this state. It's just one of those things for Crystal Quaid, a great time to get a base of statewide support built for the future. But let's be real. I mean, there's no Missourian that could beat Mike Kehoe.
Scott, a question I know we've asked you before. We asked Jay Ashcroft every time we had him in a Secretary of State's
role. You got
any
cheap drugs, or is that what you asked him? Or?
No, but we didn't swat him either. No, we asked him the whole thing of, yes, Missouri's elections were pretty set in stone that they are secure. But what about going into this in a month down the road about other states? Are they secure, or was that the whole stolen elections thing going to recycle back around?
Well, the whole stolen election thing will cycle back around if Trump loses. If Trump wins, I'll bet that election was fair and as clean as it could be. He's not the first one either. There was a lady in Georgia who happened to be African American, so I'm sure the Missouri Department of Insurance believed all of her claims. She said that she was robbed of an election by the same. It's so funny. The national people are such hypocrites. I just hate non-Missourians. I really do. The truth is, in Georgia, 2 years. I guess it was 18. This lady Stacey Abrams runs. She says she was robbed. The election was stolen. All the liberals, all the actual liberals that claim to be fair and balanced in the media, they all said, "Oh yes, it was stolen." 2 years later, Trump runs. The exact same election machines, the exact same everything, and they're like, "Oh, the election was run fair and square, no problems whatsoever." So, to be honest with you, John, they're all hypocrites. It's whoever's ox is being gored. Donald Trump lost the election, so did Stacey Abrams. But don't think they won't lie to you. If you're dumb, I have a theory about life. If you're dumb enough to believe it, then it's on you. It's not really on the person lying to you. It's like buying a pig that's already got its ear cut, right? You know that pig was stolen. It's kind of on you.
Scott, thanks. We've gone from the dog poop to the pigs. I appreciate all the information today, Scott. Where can folks find your work?
Oh, just go to Missouri Times on the internet. You'll find me one way or the other. Or just search Simple Hillbilly, and I'll probably come up there somewhere too.
Fair enough, Scott. Thanks so much. We're up against a break. Coming up next, What's Hot with Hannah? Heading down the road. Keep it right here. Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Ironic since we finally have our fall temperatures back. But yes, 7:25. We actually are doing it on time at 7:25. Congrats, Larry.
Larry, the true broadcast
so proud of
professional that
myself.
he is. Yes.
It's the only thing I'll get right today. I'm proud of myself.
Aw. Well, I am back with an update to Friday's What's Hot with Hannah that involved a TikToker and a rug that was buried in her backyard and the potential for a dead body inside said rug. Katie Santry went viral on TikTok after she found a rug buried a couple feet underground in her backyard. Her and her husband were trying to install a fence in their Columbus, Ohio backyard. And they found the tassels from a rug and they posted it online and the internet freaked out saying there might be a dead body in there. You know, in the movies, you roll a dead body up in a rug.
Sure.
And dispose of the rug.
Every good mob movie featured that.
Yes, so Katie ended up, after enough pestering from her fans on TikTok, she ended up calling the police out. They took a look. Homicide came out. They brought out some cadaver dogs. And on Friday, we found out that 2 different cadaver dogs basically signaled that they detected human remains.
Whoa.
Near this hole where the rug was buried. So that was where I left everyone last Friday.
The cliffhanger.
Yeah, late Friday morning, Friday afternoon, the homicide team dug up the rug and they found nothing in it.
Dum bum.
What a bummer.
Oh.
What a bummer. And I'm not even kidding. All day Friday, while we're waiting for the results, on other videos on TikTok, there were people in the comments talking about, well, I'm just here killing time waiting to find out what's in the rug. The internet collectively, like millions and millions of views on these TikTok updates waiting to find out what was in the rug. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting, okay? They took the rug, even though they said there was nothing in it. The homicide team took the rug to, investigate it some more, run some tests on it. But they told the homeowner that there's no body in it and everything's fine, hunky-dory. Now there's speculation from the TikTok sleuths.
I love it.
Yeah. That there actually was something in there.
Uh-oh.
But the detectives just wanted to keep it on the DL because of all the attention that Katie has accidentally garnered on TikTok. And that potentially they did find something, but they're just trying to be a little quiet about it. So, to be determined, I guess, depending on who you believe.
I have a breaking update on it.
Oh.
The FBI has been assigned to the case, and the 2 agents, Mulder and Scully,
there you go,
are at the bottom of the disappearance of this cover-up. Wow.
But folks on TikTok are going to, family members that are detectives potentially. I've seen some detectives weighing in on it that are, not attached to the case at all. And also, folks were quick to point out they brought in 2 different cadaver dogs.
Yeah, you might want to go back to the trainer on that Labradoodle and see what was up with
those
that
cadaver
thing.
dogs wanted some overtime, I think.
Well, and both of them separately signaled that there were, they detected human remains. What are the chances that they both got it wrong? You know what I mean?
It blows me away when you have something like this. Oh, first of all, it's a fantastic story, Hannah. It blows me away when there's a story like this and you have this, we'll call it crowdsourcing investigation of everybody who knows a second cousin who's a detective in that one thing.
Exactly.
And
and Brian Hauswirth in with us as well.
Well, good morning, everyone. Yep. Have we heard from Randy? How's he doing?
Yeah, he checked in with us first of last week, and we've been following him on the station Facebook pages, and he's having quite the tour. He was over in Austria. He was in Switzerland, now making the swing through Bavaria. So they're doing the whirlwind tour.
So if you're going to be running from the law, I think country hopping would probably be the best way to do that. And I'm not alleging anything
you never
with
know.
Dr. Tobler. I'm just saying if someone were going to be doing that. Well, obviously, today is a somber anniversary. It is a one-year anniversary of the Hamas terrorist atrocities committed against Israel. And we're hoping to talk with Congressman Alford coming up. But I wanted to talk about, obviously, the remembrance and what it has revealed a lot about our nation over the last year. When we look at what happened a year ago, so many hostages taken, including Americans, so many of which are still missing during this conflict. It has led to massive conflict in Gaza, massive conflict in Lebanon now, and direct conflict for the first time, I believe for the first time, between Iran and Israel. And as we sit here and we've seen the attacks go back and forth, there's a huge question as to whether or not Israel is going to respond to Iran for the recent missile attacks that I believe happened on Friday. And there's a whole lot of questions with it. Obviously, Israel trying to defend itself, but make no mistake, American military service is being used in this conflict to help Israel defend itself. And so in that sense, we are already involved. And as someone who follows, energy, I'm going to try to bring that into this because we need to look at what the Biden-Harris administration has done over the last 3.5 years. We've seen them look the other way on what was supposed to be sanctioned Iranian oil. And when I say look the other way and it's sanctioned, it means Iran is not supposed to be able to sell it. But what has really happened is Iran has set records for their export of oil in terms of money. And so when you have someone who is playing against the rules, such as Iran and Russia, with what their energy is sanctioned, they approach these countries and say, listen, we know we're sanctioned, but if we give you 30% off, will you take our oil? And more than a few countries are saying yes. Sure. And so for Iran, I'll give you a couple of guesses, but you may only need one. The top country that is taking their oil is China. And so China taking, and what is supposed to be stopped here is when we see the oil moving from Iran to China, it's supposed to be stopped, but it's not, because the Biden-Harris administration has decided that letting Iran make money off of oil in order to potentially preserve a nuclear deal with them was the right thing to do. And I think that all changed. It should have all changed on October 7th. But I'm not so sure it has. Because when you see Kamala Harris talk about, I don't really trust Netanyahu, that's paraphrasing on my part, wasn't a direct quote, when she says the American people and the Israeli people are close. And let's not forget that Kamala Harris had to choose Tim Walz because on October 7th, we start to see pro-Hamas protests prop up.
Big time. And
they are predominantly from one side of the political spectrum. And Josh Shapiro, I didn't know him from anything until the last 6 months or so. Apparently has a Jewish background or is a member of the Jewish faith. And he had to do a public statement saying that will not have any indication or any influence on my decisions. That was when I was younger, I believe was the term he used. I'm having to paraphrase here, so forgive me if I get it wrong. And then Kamala Harris went ahead and chose Tim Walz anyway. And after last week's debate, you have to wonder if she's regretting that right now. But as we sit here today, a year removed.
It was very telling, wasn't it?
I think, yeah, it is. And we have to have a discussion. There was a year ago now, as we looked at who was behind these atrocious attacks, that people were upset that we had released $6 billion in Iranian dollars. When I say we, I mean the United States. The Biden-Harris administration did that. And that is an atrocious release because we know what Iran is using that money for. We knew before.
It's only for humanitarian purposes,
sure.
they said. They swore that it was only for humanitarian purposes.
The missiles were mostly peaceful, as the legacy media will tell you. But we look the other way when it comes to their oil. And so you have an administration that has tried to slice us out from the knees for when it comes to American energy. But when it comes to Iranian energy, they say, oh, we need to keep them happy because Barack Obama made this nuclear deal and we want to preserve that as part of his legacy. So let them move the oil, let them move it. They're setting records. And so they're allowed to rake in even more billions now.
And even the Russians are buying their oil. Russia, who doesn't need their oil.
Russia is buying their oil. They're buying their weapons to use in Ukraine. And so when we see that there is an area of the world that has set up a triumvirate of their own economy, Russia, Iran, China, I believe India is buying some of the Russian energy as well. They're looking the other way on, these supposed sanctions that were supposed to hurt. We start to see that we have an ineffectual leader. We start to see that we have an administration that not only has a vice president that doesn't want to be accountable to the press when she wasn't taking care of the border, then she was also looking the other way while Iran made billions in oil. And that is something to try to remember as we look at this scenario that's playing out right now. So tell you what, why don't we see as we look at this anniversary, I got to tell you, I get nervous. I get nervous at the escalating steps. I get nervous at what is going on back and forth because we are already involved in helping Israel defend itself, in my opinion, as we should be. We should be helping our allies defend themselves. But involvement carries a whole lot of weight with it. History tells us that. And so when I look at my sons who just turned 18, you start to wonder what kind of world are we going to be inheriting if Kamala Harris inherits the White House?
Well, I think there's still the question, too, when we had Colonel Steve Bucci on with us, our national defense analyst, when he was on with us just the other day, we asked Steve about not only what do you think the Israelis are going to do? Are they going to have a token response? Are they going to go after the nuclear infrastructure in Iran like they did in Syria and they did in Iraq? Or are they going to go after the infrastructure of Iran's oil industry?
And those are all things that would absolutely hurt. And as we look at the past year, again, we have to start to see how things have not just changed in American politics, but look at how the world, I have to laugh to keep from crying. Do you remember when they said we voted for Donald Trump that there would be war in the Middle East? Do you remember they said if we voted for Donald Trump, there would be war across the globe? And lo and behold, those guys got put in charge in Washington. And what have we seen? We've seen them continually put their political metrics on our foreign policy. And it has led to absolute failure.
Look how Afghanistan ended under this current administration.
There's been so much, and that's where people I get accused of, oh, you're just bringing up, old stuff from the past. It's not that old. And we completely forget. You're absolutely right on Afghanistan. And how much would Kamala Harris like us to forget about all of that? I mean, these are the questions I'm sure that she will be answering in her media blitz coming up. I'm sure Stephen Colbert will get to the bottom of why do you let Iran sell the oil? How about that botched Afghanistan withdrawal? You said you were in the room on that. How about, I'm sure Colbert and The View will get you all.
Whoopi's going to ask the hard questions about what would it take to get Ukraine and Russia to stop fighting.
And Tim Walz will say he was there. So it's a situation where I'm sure those hard questions will make it to the forefront of what's going on. And again, I say laugh to keep from crying, and that's exactly where we are, because this person wants to be the leader of the free world.
Well, and I love that they're calling her 3 interviews like a media blitz. One of the folks that I follow on Twitter is a comms person for one of our state officials, and she retweeted this morning, last time I checked, Media Blitz is like 14 interviews in a matter of a couple hours, but okay, go ahead.
Well, and I'm not saying they have to be adversarial, but they have to be at least objective interviews. There is no objective party that Kamala Harris has met with. And the one time she did it was with Dana Bash at CNN, and I think they gave her like literally 15 minutes, and Walsh was there with her. She couldn't even do it and again, we
joke that he was the one off camera holding up the cue cards.
That's right. I mean, it's scary to think about it, but fast forward 4 months from now, if there's a President Harris, and this conflict will still be ongoing. Madam President, Netanyahu's on the phone. Madam President, Iran's getting ready to do this. Oh, do we call in Tim Walz? Do we call in Whoopi? To make sure? There is an argument to be made when you have these things and you call it a media blitz. Part of the scrutiny that these candidates go through with the media helps prepare them for the job if they weren't already prepared. Donald Trump, we know he's done the job, and so he will do. I sometimes I pull my hair out over Donald Trump, and I see him doing interviews with outlets that are just the worst. But yet he's not afraid of an adversarial opportunity to face someone who disagrees with him. And I think that's why, I know the Democrats don't like this bringing up, but that's why people like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk will go on and endorse Donald Trump because those were folks that were adversarial to him. Tulsi Gabbard ran for president hoping to run against Donald Trump.
J.D. Vance back in the day.
Yes, and these are folks that when they talk to him, they like, you know what, the caricature that the media portrays about you, my goodness, it might not be true. When they say media blitz, it might not be true. So as we look at the 1 year anniversary today on October and mark the solemn anniversary, we also need to recognize the failures of the United States that have delivered us to where we are today, and recognize that real leadership absolutely matters. And we only have one chance to get real leadership every 4 years in the White House. And so I would say, go back to my old position. I know the polls are going to say things. They're going to say tight. They're going to say leading here, leading there. It doesn't matter. We need to be there to make our voice heard. So on that happy note, we'll go ahead and go into a break because I got more coming up for us, including a story about
September 23rd at the Presidio, Texas port of entry, not the usual contraband. They were inspecting a vehicle driven into the U.S., and the CPB guys found 748 pounds of Mexican bologna. 40 rolls of the deli meat were hidden in a number of suitcases hidden throughout the vehicle. The port director said, "Our concern with pork products is they have the potential to introduce foreign animal disease that could affect the U.S. economy and the ag industry." The driver got a $1,000 civil penalty. The bologna, according to the Border Patrol, was destroyed. They did not say if they fed it to the illegals. And he did point out this is the same team that stopped a shipment of a 5,000-gallon tanker truck loaded with bootleg Tapatio hot sauce. And now you know the rest of that story.
What is going on in Presidio? What is happening down there? Presidio is a Big Bend country part of Texas,
right there.
Right on the border there.
5,000-gallon tanker truck full of bootleg hot sauce. Put that on your Mexican bologna and smoke it.
And I would love to just sit down with the driver for 10 minutes and say, bologna? Really? Like, who decided, you know what? I'm making a run to Mexico. I really, really need.
Sounds like an old ZZ Top song.
So yeah, run to the Mexico bologna run is my favorite ZZ Top song. And so, but what was it, like 700 pounds?
750 pounds of Mexican bologna. You've ever had Mexican? I don't ever had Mexican bologna.
No, I mean, I was making the joke earlier. I saw Mexican bologna open for ZZ Top back in the 80s. But
exactly.
When I just trying to, so I grew up near the border, and you would see these type of stories all the time. It was hidden in hubcaps or hidden in wheel wells.
Exactly, but it wasn't generally bologna.
It was not generally bologna. And you have to wonder, and I don't mean to be flippant about drug running. Drug running's terrible and all that stuff, but you have to wonder if this is like some drug lord said, listen, you don't get to have the good product right away. We're going to get you started on bologna. And if you can get the bologna across,
there you go.
Then we'll graduate to the real stuff. Or, because I think that's the only thing that makes more sense, that other than there's some guy somewhere who just has a hankering for Mexican bologna and taking it through Presidio, Texas. And anyone, if you've been there, it is deserty, nasty. It's not the prettiest place to be. There's a lot of agriculture that goes on down there, lots of growing, but bologna is not one of the things I'd want to be hauling through the desert sun, particularly 700 pounds of it. And if you figure it's hidden, I'm going to say that's not quite air conditioned. After a while,
you can probably get a whiff of the bologna.
I mean, you won't have to fry it when you get home. Is all I'm saying. Is that there's going to be issues running. Well, you know what? I think we used to hear in the '90s, "Run for the border."
There you go.
And this guy took it very literally, I guess.
Back he came with the bologna.
Well, and I guess no one told him the hot sauce got caught too. Maybe it was a team.
It could have been.
It was a team. It's like, I'll get the hot sauce.
And they had another
you get the bologna.
Another bootleg run of 25,000 tortillas coming across in another truck.
We'll meet you at College Station for the game on Saturday. They didn't make it. They didn't make it to the game. At least the bologna didn't. I was $1,000 fine.
The only bologna on that field was in Tiger Gold.
Oh, I didn't say it. Send your calls and emails to John at
right here
at the station. Well, there is another story that is it may be. Well, I hesitate to get into it because I want to give it the time and the opportunity that it deserves. But maybe we'll talk about it later. There's a teacher that offered extra credit to students to inform you and tell you everything that is going on. And joining us is Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm a new guy in town, and so I'm so grateful for the Congressman taking time to join us today. Obviously, it is a somber anniversary today, Congressman, and I wanted to just kind of help remind the folks from your point of view. We've had some serious failures from the Biden-Harris administration over the past year. And from my point of view, it's been so many failures that we kind of forget them, since it's been a whole year. But from your point of view, what have been some of the, most egregious shortfallings of their foreign policy over the past months and years?
Well, I mean, you start out with, it's great to be with you, and welcome to the show, Larry. You start with Afghanistan being the biggest blunder a couple of years ago when I've talked to a gentleman who was in the service and actually designed the plan to get us out of Afghanistan. And whenever the administration decided to go, they scrapped the plan and they just threw it out and did their own way of going about it and screwed it all up. And as a result, 13 people died. One was from my district, and it's been a disaster ever since. I mean, the first thing they did when they got in was they took the sanctions off of Iran, which we had their economy almost on the ropes, ready to implode. And suddenly they were able after we took the sanctions off, to sell their oil. And now they've got between $80 and $100 billion worth of oil sales that have regenerated their economy to a very strong place. And they're funding the Houthis and the Hezbollah and Hamas. And so, I mean, and then you keep going, and now you wind up with, Israel, the latest one here, and they're threatening to not support them. We are supporting them, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. But they've made some noise about, we need to go to the peace tables, we need to do this, need that. Well, wait a minute. They didn't start this war, number one. And number two, the atrocities that are committed against the Israeli people are unforgivable and have got to be dealt with. And this administration wants to sweep that all under the rug and pat everybody, the Houthis and the Hezbollah and the Hamas folks, on the head and say, you're going to be nice people from now on. That's not the way that part of the world works. And so as a result, Israel is going out on their own, and they are blasting the heck out of all these people, and got Iran now wondering if they're not going to be attacked directly in a much more significant way if they don't back off. And so, Israel is truly backed into a corner, and they have no place to go except just fight like the Dickens to save themselves, their country, their people, and their spot there in the Middle East. And so this administration has done nothing but wring their hands and platitudes to everybody. So we need to be nice and hold on, do everything we need to do to hold on to everything. And it's like, no. You guys are not supporting people in the way you need to be supporting, the way the United States helps their friends. And that's what the real big problem is. And so this administration has been weak from the very beginning. It's been weak on our border, which is another international crisis as far as I'm concerned. And so when you don't have a border, you don't have a sovereign country. That's just the way it works. And so we're in deep trouble with this outfit.
Congressman, today, where do you think the Chinese are at with all of this? For now, a wait-and-see approach, but how do you think it's affecting their thoughts of what may happen, Taiwan Straits, South China Sea, et cetera, down the road?
Well, I sit on the China Select Committee, so I get briefings on this all the time. And this has been an ongoing problem for the entire period here. I didn't mention it, but I'm glad you did, John, because it's been a disaster from the get-go with this group. And to make the point, if you remember last December, President Biden met with President Xi of China in San Francisco in mid-December. And after that meeting, for about 2 weeks, only thing that you heard out of China was how they were going to take back Taiwan. Taiwan was part of the country of China. It was those people over there just rebels, and therefore they had to be run out of off the island, and we need to take that island back. For 2 weeks, they did nothing like that. And they knew that Biden would do nothing except sit there and take that. If that was Trump would have sat there and said, no, you guys, this is not what's going to happen, and would have pushed back. And so they understand the weakness of this administration. And over the last 4 years, the Chinese have built new islands in the South Pacific. They have rammed our ships. They have flown into our airspace. They're in the process right now negotiating some land from the Native Americans up in Alaska to build ports so they can have a direct shipping lane across the Arctic to Europe. They are in every single walk of our lives. They get between $200 and $600 billion a year of intellectual property from our companies, our own companies in this country, besides about 1 million packs a day on our Defense Department. I mean, this is an all-out war against this country on many different facets. Even the Ebola the COVID situation that was originated in China, they had a year and a half ago, we found a biolab in California that was producing about 25 to 30 pathogens, including Ebola and COVID, that they could release here in our country. I mean, this is no longer even something that they hide, something that is, they kind of deny. They don't deny any of this anymore. They get caught and they say, so what? And they move on. And this administration does nothing to push back against this. And we keep sending money, although our investment companies are starting to wonder if this is a bad idea, which it is a horrible idea for them to continue to invest money in China and help them raise their economy and the companies that they give this money to compete against our own companies here in this country and run them out of business. I keep talking all morning on this. I don't want to belabor some of the points here, but the bottom line is these guys are allowing China, through their weak administration, to continue to wreak havoc with our country on all sorts of fronts, whether it's military, whether it's economic, whether it's pandemic, or whether it's cyber. Those are the four main ways they're attacking our country, and they're doing it every single day.
Congressman, we saw a noteworthy event, at least in this administration this week, late last week, when President Biden actually showed up at a White House press conference, and he was spiking the football on employment numbers and trying to push the agenda that the economy is doing really well. And as I've talked with folks, I don't know about everyone, but I have an addiction to the grocery store. It seems like I have to go there once a week. And I see things aren't getting better there, despite what I'm hearing out of Washington. What is it from your point of view that is still hampering our economy besides, Biden-Harris, which I know is probably the biggest weight on the economy right now?
Yeah, it's inflation, and it's a cruel tax is what it is. It takes money away from people because they have to spend more for the same amount of goods that they were purchasing a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years ago. They're now spending more money. In fact, the numbers on it are about within the last 2 or 3 years, the same amount of groceries and goods that you were purchasing 2 or 3 years ago now costs $1,000 more per month, and they haven't had a $1,000 per month raise. This is for the average family of four making $55,000-$60,000 a year. So this is hurting these people. It hurts like the dickens. And for him to sit there and look at those numbers, well, let's talk about the rest of the numbers. Let's look at the inflation and all these things. And the inflation is made up of 2 or 3 different things. Energy prices is a big part of it, but rules and regulations is another part. And nobody wants to talk about this, and nobody understands the effect of this. The rules and regulations, first-time costs alone to comply with these rules, and these are their figures, not mine. These are their figures because when they file a rule or a law change, you have to have an economic number with it that shows what the cost is going to be to comply. So you just take their numbers and add them all together. And for this administration, the first 3 years was $150 billion per year, first-time compliance cost that had to be paid by all those small businesses, basically, that are complying with these things and pass those costs on to the customer. So that's a huge driver. Since January, it's over $1.2 trillion. That's with a T. $1 trillion of new rules and regulations. It's on steroids right now, putting new rules and regulations out there. This is a huge driver of inflation, and it's not going to go away. Once those costs are baked into the small businesses' costs of doing business, it's there. It's just like your employee costs. Once you raise the pay of all those folks, that's a new baseline for the cost of your doing business. And so those things are all baked in. They're not going to go away. Larry, I'm sorry to tell you that when you go to the grocery store, those groceries are not going to be less than they were last week. They're probably going to be more. And so, yeah, it's a bad deal, and these guys don't understand how the economy works, and therefore you're not going to see anything improve under these people.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is our guest. He represents always a pleasure, Congressman. I want to thank you for your service over the years and the in the many interviews on various stations. I want to change subjects just very briefly. I know that a lot of serious issues here, and this is obviously a very serious issue. Just to put an updated story up, KWS.com, 939theeagle.com, about Missouri Task Force 1. Congressman, they searched this river in North Carolina all weekend. Dogs, helicopters, drones are actually decontaminating their equipment, cleaning it right now. They're working in just horrible conditions. Just your thoughts, Congressman, on the work that Task Force 1 is doing, literally working almost around the clock down there.
Yeah, we're really blessed to have the men and women who make up Task Force 1 to be able to do this kind of work. Those are very, very special people. They're people who love their fellow man enough to put themselves at danger and risk sometimes. They're very, very specifically trained to be able to do the job of going in and helping people in an emergency and natural disaster situations like what we see right now on the East Coast, from North Carolina all the way to Florida. And we admire what they're doing and certainly want to give them every bit of our help and support and our prayers to be able to help those people who have been harmed by this disastrous hurricane. And there's another one on the way, what I understand. So hopefully that will not be as serious as this last one. But this last one apparently was one of disastrous magnitude, and these people are doing yeoman's work to be able to do that, and bless them for their willingness to do that. And they're away from their homes and their families for days and on end here, and working, like you say, 24/7 and making a difference. And I think, whenever you look at your own life and you look at what you can do with your own family, your community, the business, or the job that you have, at the end of the day, if you can make a difference in somebody's life that day, that was a successful day for you. And these people are truly making a difference every day when they're out there in this sort of circumstance. So our hearts and prayers go out to them, and we'll continue to support them in every way we can. And thank goodness that we have those folks willing to do that tough work.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman.
Well, Congressman, we're up against the break. So grateful for you taking the time to join us this morning and give us your insight, and thanks for your work. And we know elections not far away, and you'll be watching and paying close attention, as will all of us. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
on here in Jefferson City. But I believe the last time I guest hosted and you were on, we were talking about the East Capitol and the work you all were doing there. And John tells me you all recently did a tour of that area. So I wanted to kind of get an update on what's going on in that part of the community.
Yes, it's very exciting. We are spending a lot of time working. Essentially, it's the 400 block right now, but it'll be the 400 block through 700, trying to rebuild that very historic part of our town. I mean, unfortunately, as you're aware and your listeners, we had to remove a number of those beautiful old homes. They had just been neglected, and by the time the city could get a hold of them, we had to demolish some of them. But very fortunately, we've been able to save some, including the historic Bishop Funeral Home, and we've got a very exciting organization coming back to Capitol Avenue that's going to rehabilitate that historic building. And so we're spending a lot of time trying to make sure that we do it right, because we're building and rebuilding this for the next couple generations.
Ron, talk to us about the old Bisher home, because I think people have a lot of interest in that one, and Mrs. Bisher was the one who owned several of the homes that were taken over by the city. But now we're hearing Missouri Association of Counties has quite the ambitious plan for that building.
Absolutely. And I mean, we all remember back the day after the tornado back in 2019. Unfortunately, one of the buildings that we lost that day was the headquarters for the Missouri Association of Counties. Steve Hobbs, a very good friend of mine, former legislator, is their executive director. And I think they have always wanted to get back onto Capitol Avenue. And when this exciting opportunity, we just happened to be talking in the Capitol one day, and he got very interested in that building. So they're going to come in, and the exciting part is they're going to save as much of the building as they can. The Capitol Avenue view will look a lot like it did when the funeral home was there, including the columns, the color of the building, the texture of the building, the signage. They've got some of the building on the back side that will have to be taken down, but they're going to recreate office space and meeting space on that corner, and it's just going to be an incredible addition to that part of town and really be a vibrant part of our rebuild on the 400 block.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I know, too, that as you take down these dilapidated buildings, and it's been discussed, what impact, and probably a larger question I hesitate to say it, but as we get into the holiday season, what larger impact has that had on homelessness in that area and in downtown? I mean, when there's dilapidated buildings, obviously that can attract folks. And now that they're gone, are you seeing an impact? And kind of the larger question, I know there's a task force and a lot of effort behind that. And how is that effort going?
Well, what we find is every vacant building, even if they are what we think are secured, we're finding people are getting into them. So it's dangerous for our police and fire. Obviously, if someone gets into the building, they cause problems. We want to keep those individuals safe, but we also want to keep our law enforcement, our public safety safe as they have to go into these buildings. So we find that every building that has been boarded up, Tennyson's across the board, that people are getting into. So that's why we're trying to turn them around as quickly as possible. It took us time to get control of those buildings in the Capitol Avenue area. The city does own the properties now, and that's why we're out trying to market them to investors and individuals that want to help rehab. The ones that we can salvage, as I indicated, some have come down, so we've got vacant lots, but we're looking at individuals and investors that are willing to go into those vacant lots and rebuild the historic quality of that section of town. It just takes time to piece the puzzle together, but we want to make sure that we do it right.
Mr. Mayor, you're still getting I don't know, should we call them anecdotal stories about Jefferson City being a soft touch that the homeless people share with each other and then actively direct themselves here?
I think that was certainly the case over the summertime. We had a couple places where they notoriously were congregating. I think those organizations have taken a much harder look at the damage that it was causing not only to their clientele and their building, but to the neighborhood. They disperse around town. It'll be fascinating as we begin to enter the winter months. I mean, last year, the First Baptist Church and some individuals had room at the inn, so that attracted some people into that part of town to spend the night, especially on the cold nights. So we're trying to get a handle on it. This community is a very loving and giving community, but it's a community of hardworking individuals that if they reach out and try to help, they expect the person on the other side to reach out if it's possible. So I think we're trying to address it from a perspective where we're trying to help people, but we do not want to be seen as the place where you can just come and not have to put anything into it. So we've got a homeless task force. We actually have our first meeting on Thursday, and we'll begin to look at what resources are available. How can we help individuals? And our police department has done a great job. Chief Wilde has brought in a professional that's on staff that for people that want to be helped and want to have access to mental health resources, other resources in the community. Our community is giving, and we're trying to help. For people that don't want to be helped, that's going to be the challenge of this task force because we're trying not to attract those kind of folks to our town.
Jefferson City Mayor Ron Fitzwater with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Mr. Mayor, give us an update on the old MSP property and the work that's planned there for potentially when the smoke all clears, a new city park and more, correct?
Yeah, there's still, we're still kind of designing, working with the state of Missouri, working with the Office of Administration, with DNR on what the historic site will look like, where we currently give tours in cell blocks 1, 3, and 4. But more importantly, as you indicate, what does the rest of that historic site look like? And then as you travel down the hill east toward Chestnut Street, what will the property that the city was able to acquire from the state look like? On the old historic site, folks that have driven by there see that, unfortunately, cell block 2 is in the process of coming down. It was very heavily damaged during the tornado and just got to the point where it had to come down, or the concern was it was going to fall towards cell block 3. So 2 is coming down. That'll clean up that front lot for the most part, on the Lafayette Capitol Avenue piece of the site. We've already taken the old saddle tree factory down on the north side of the property, so we've helped the state and worked with it getting that building down. Cell block 5 is still under discussion. There's some plans to take it down, but there's many of us that would like to see that cell block saved if we can figure out how to do it. Down the hill on the west side of Chestnut, the city has proposed a river market concept on the back side of the property, so it'd be the north side of the property farthest from Capitol Avenue. And then, of course, on the east side of Chestnut, the state of Missouri is in the process of building the multiple health lab project, which is about a $175 million project. So we're trying to make sure that, again, that we do a good job of redeveloping and working with the state to redevelop that site. We see those 8 blocks between the prison and the Capitol complex as an economic driver for the city, and certainly a historic area that we're trying to preserve the best we can. So we're spending a lot of time and looking at MSP. And, over the last year and a half since I've been in office, we've been able to get things moving, and that's been my goal. That, we're tired of talking about things. We're tired of kicking cans down the road. We want to get busy on it, and you're going to see a lot of activity continued there over the next couple of years.
Well, and also in that area, I know the city's been working on potentially a new conference center there. What's the latest update there?
Yeah, the conference center will be in the 200 block of East Capitol, so a little bit closer to the Capitol complex itself. We're progressing. We're on schedule. We've hired a company called Garfield Public Private to help guide us through the process. We've got a local group that's headed up by JC Regional Economic Partnership, so Luke Holtznieder and his team over there working with the city, the county, the state. But the nice thing about it is we, as a city, control that half block. It's on Capitol Avenue between Madison and Monroe Street. We've already taken the News Tribune building down in anticipation of that project. So it's on track. We're excited about it. I think we hear a lot from the community. People are excited. They want to see what it looks like, and hopefully prior to Thanksgiving we can release what the proposed designs are and certainly the cost projections and where we go from here.
Ron, talk to us moving into a new legislative session. Heck, they'll be pre-filing bills 1st of December, really not that far away. Priorities for the city and with the legislature, and I guess basically, are you reasonably assured the state will stay behind their commitment to the whole MSP prison site, especially supporting that acreage that the city owns?
My understanding, and obviously we still have an election to go through, but I've had discussions with Lieutenant Governor Kehoe. If it's a Governor Kehoe, I think he is committed to working with the city on that property, his indication. And Governor Parson the same way. I did not feel that Governor Parson or Lieutenant Governor Kehoe had an interest in taking that site back. But, certainly as new people come in, as he or whoever the new governor is builds their team, we'll have to work with those teams. But I think the verbal commitment is that they will live up to what they have worked out with the city. And from our side, we've got to live up to what we committed, which was that we would help develop that site and also work with them on the historic site. As you indicated, there's discussions. Do we create part of that site as a state park? What we'd like to be able to do is connect the courthouse, the federal courthouse, the historic site, on down through the prison property, through the river market, and then up east, up the hillside where the DNR building is. DNR has bought the old shoe factory, so they'll be rehabbing that, the new One Health Lab. So the state has invested a lot in and around that area, and it's a very important part of our city because when the prison moved out, the census tract in that area, we lost a lot of jobs, and then we lost homes during the tornadoes. So we've got our challenge in rebuilding that part of town. Certainly the state is very important in our ability to be able to do that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you for giving us an update on all the things that you all are working on. I know it's constant, but we appreciate hearing from you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. You guys have always been very generous to at least allow us to lay our side out. So thank you very much for all you do for our community.
All right, and we're heading up into a break right now. That is Jefferson City Mayor Fitzwater joining us. And coming up after the break, we got some leftovers for you on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. today a story in my leftovers about an educator who is, no pun intended, in some hot water. The math teacher.
Or at least lukewarm.
Lukewarm, yeah. A math teacher in, you guessed it, California.
Of course.
Is in trouble over their P policy. The line says this math teacher's P policy doesn't add up. The educator has been accused of cruelty after awarding bonus points to students who don't take a bathroom break during class. So apparently the teacher gives them one bathroom pass a week for their class. I assume it's a junior high or a high school setting where they're just in her class or his class for an hour or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they get one pass a week. If they don't use the pass, they are given extra credit. A peeved parent of one of the pedagogue's pupils, I did not make this up, leaked the bizarre bathroom rule in a post that has clocked over 16 million views on Twitter.
16 million. That's a lot of alliteration,
and
isn't it?
It is a ton of alliteration. It is, I guess the opinions are somewhat split. The parents responding to it say it's barbaric, it's terrible. But then there's some teachers who say, listen, the bathroom is where the students go to get in trouble during class time or they meet their friends. And another teacher says it's extra credit. The students aren't being penalized for it. But that's what Larry brings to the leftovers table today.
It's kind of interesting, too, back to the era of smoking in the boys' room before.
That's right.
They don't think they can quite get away with that in the modern era, but...
Or not without giving up their extra credit, I guess.
There you go.
I guess if you're vaping in the boys' room, you're not worried about extra credit. I don't know. I don't know how those rules work. How about you? What you got for leftovers?
I just keep focusing back to the first thing you talked about, Larry, when we got on the air of the 41-10 trouncing by the Texas Aggies, the Missouri Tigers. We've now dropped 12 spots in the latest AP poll, now ranked 21st team in the country. Personally, I was amazed they still cracked the top 25. But, hey, the mighty Elephants of Alabama fell to defeat over the weekend. So.
It's a 12-team playoff, Missouri. You're still doing fine. You're still doing fine. You're still in the SEC. You can get in with a loss. Or if you're Alabama with 2 losses. But anyway, you can still get in with a loss. Hannah, you got any leftovers for us?
Well, I don't know if we've talked about it on the show. I know we've talked about it off air. But Vanderbilt beat Alabama over the weekend. And, you just love to see it. You really do.
An angel gets their wings every time Alabama loses. Is that what you're saying, Hannah?
Yeah.
And the Hogs Arkansas beat number 4 Tennessee too. So it was a crazy weekend in the SEC.
Hate to be the guys at the Associated Press who decide how those top 25 teams rank because
oh my goodness,
there was a whole lot of craziness that went on.
Well, and it's not over, right? Apparently, there's some sports competitions this very evening.
That's right. I think there's some baseball being played, and I think some team in Kansas City is playing host